The diplomatic vessel, Harmony's Edge, hummed with the familiar vibration of faster-than-light travel. As Marine Captain Jackson Cross made his way through the narrow corridors, his boots echoed against the metallic floor, a sound that had become as comforting as a heartbeat during his 3 years aboard the joint human-alien vessel. The 14-hour shift monitoring the peace talks between the Terran Federation and the Vorthak Collective had left him bone-tired, and all he wanted was to collapse onto his narrow bunk. Jackson palmed the entry pad to his quarters, expecting the familiar hiss of the door sliding open to reveal his Spartanly furnished but private sanctuary. Instead, he froze in the doorway, his hand instinctively moving to the plasma blaster at his hip. A figure crouched near his personal footlocker, hands moving with practiced efficiency through his belongings. The intruder wore a shimmering cloak that bent light around its edges, making them appear as little more than a ripple in the air. But Jackson's enhanced military training caught the subtle movements, the way shadows fell wrong, the almost imperceptible disturbance in the room's atmosphere. "Freeze," he commanded, drawing his weapon in one fluid motion. The plasma charge hummed to life, casting blue light across the small cabin. "Hands where I can see them, now." The figure went rigid, then slowly raised 2 hands, distinctly humanoid but longer, more elegant than human fingers. With deliberate care, the intruder reached up and deactivated the cloaking device. The shimmering field collapsed, revealing a woman unlike any human Jackson had ever seen. She was breathtaking in an alien way that made his breath catch. Her skin held a subtle luminescence, pale blue-white like moonlight on fresh snow. High cheekbones and a delicate jaw framed features that were almost human but refined to an impossible perfection. Her hair fell in silver waves to her shoulders, and when she turned to face him, her eyes were the deep violet of nebula he'd seen in space, ancient and knowing. "You're Vorthak," he said, though it wasn't a question. Her species was supposedly allied with humanity, part of the delicate diplomatic dance that kept the galaxy from another devastating war. "What are you doing in my quarters?" She rose gracefully, her movements fluid as water. She wore a form-fitting suit that seemed to shift between black and deep purple, and Jackson couldn't help but notice how it accentuated her curves. Despite pointing a weapon at her, he felt an unexpected flutter of attraction that he quickly suppressed. "Captain Cross," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that made his name sound like poetry. "I am Kira of the Vorthak Research Division. I was not stealing from you." "Right," Jackson said dryly, though he kept his weapon trained on her center mass. "You just happened to be rifling through my personal effects for fun. Hands behind your head, step away from my things." Kira complied, but her violet eyes never left his face. There was something there, not fear, but a kind of desperate urgency that made him hesitate. "You don't understand," she said softly. "I wasn't taking anything. I was looking for something that shouldn't be there. Something they put inside you." "They?" Jackson's finger hovered over the trigger. "Who's they? And what do you mean inside?" "Me. My people," Kira whispered, and for the first time he heard pain in her voice. "Years ago during your diplomatic mission to Vorthak Prime, you were injured, taken to our medical facilities. They told you it was routine treatment, but it wasn't. They implanted something in you, a biochip. I came to find it, to destroy. The evidence before..." "Before what?" Jackson demanded, though something cold was settling in his stomach. He remembered that mission, remembered the explosion that had left him unconscious for days in a Vorthak medical center. The doctors had been so helpful, so concerned for his welfare. "Before they activate the others," Kira said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're not the only one, Jackson. There are dozens of you, maybe hundreds. Humans who were selected, modified, turned into something else without your knowledge or consent." The plasma blaster felt heavy in his hand suddenly. "You're lying." "I wish I were." Kira took a step closer, ignoring the weapon pointed at her. "Touch the back of your neck, just below your hairline. Tell me you don't feel the small, hard ridge that wasn't there before your injury." Against his better judgment, Jackson reached up with his free hand, fingers probing the base of his skull. There, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it, was a small hard bump beneath the skin. His blood ran cold. "That's impossible," he breathed. "The chip contains your modified DNA," Kira continued, her eyes never leaving his. "Evidence of what they've done to you, what they plan to do with you. I was sent to retrieve it, but when I saw you—" She paused, something vulnerable flickering across her features. "I couldn't do it. I couldn't hurt you." Jackson's mind raced. If she was telling the truth, then everything he thought he knew about himself, about the alliance between their species, was a lie. But if she was lying, this could be an elaborate setup, a way to compromise him or gather intelligence. "Why? Should I trust you?" he asked, though his weapon had unconsciously lowered a few inches. Kira's smile was sad and beautiful. "Because, Captain Cross, if I wanted to hurt you, I could have done it while you slept. Because I've been watching you for weeks, and I know you're a good man who doesn't deserve what they've planned for you. And because—" She hesitated, then met his eyes directly. "Because I think I'm falling in love with you. And that was never supposed to happen." The confession hung in the air between them like a bridge neither could cross back over. Jackson stared, at her weapon wavering, as alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the ship. The alarms cut through the tension like a blade, red emergency lights bathing Jackson's quarters in crimson shadows. Kira's eyes widened with fear, not for herself, but for him. "They know I'm here," she whispered urgently. "Captain, we have to—" "Nobody moves," Jackson commanded, though his weapon now felt like a foreign object in his hands. The bump at the base of his skull seemed to throb with newfound awareness. "Start talking. Everything. Now." Kira's hands trembled as she pressed them against her sides. "The Vorthak Collective has a secret division, the Enhancement Protocol. For decades we've been studying humans, fascinated by your adaptability, your resilience. When the Alliance was formed, some of our scientists saw an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" Jackson's voice was deadly quiet. "To create the perfect soldier," she said, the words tumbling out rapidly. "Human determination and courage, enhanced, with Vorthak telepathic abilities and accelerated healing. The biochips don't just monitor, they modify. They're slowly changing your DNA, preparing your body for full activation." Jackson felt sick. "How many others?" "On this ship alone? At least 12 that I know of. In the fleet? Hundreds." Kira stepped closer, ignoring the weapon between them. "But Jackson, you have to understand. Not all of us supported this. There's a resistance movement among my people. My brother was part of it until they killed him for trying to expose the program." The raw pain in her voice made something in Jackson's chest tighten. Despite everything, the betrayal, the violation of his very DNA, he found himself believing her. More than that, he was drawn to her in a way that defied logic. "Why you?" he asked. "Why did they send you specifically?" A flush of violet darkened her luminescent cheeks. "Because I'm expendable. My family's opposition to the program made me suspect. They thought sending me to retrieve evidence would be a way to dispose of me quietly." She paused, meeting his eyes. "They didn't count on me finding you first." The alarm suddenly stopped, replaced by an even more ominous silence. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Too many, too coordinated to be routine patrol. "Security sweep," Jackson realized. He holstered his weapon and grabbed Kira's arm, pulling her toward the small maintenance hatch near his bunk. "They'll be here in 30 seconds. "You're helping me?" she asked, surprised. "I'm helping us," he corrected, prying open the narrow access panel. "If what you're saying is true, then we're both dead if they find you here." The maintenance tunnel was barely wide enough for one person, forcing them to crawl single file through the ship's mechanical spaces. Jackson led, acutely, aware of Kira's presence behind him, the whisper of her breathing, the subtle warmth radiating from her alien physiology. Despite their circumstances, he couldn't ignore the way his body responded to her proximity. They emerged in an unused storage bay 3 levels down, both breathing heavily from the tight quarters. In the dim emergency lighting, Kira looked ethereal, her silver hair catching the red glow like starlight. "There's more," she said quietly, settling beside him against a stack of supply crates. "The modifications aren't just physical. The telepathic enhancement creates connections, bonds between enhanced individuals and certain Vorthak." "What kind of bonds?" Jackson asked, though he had a feeling he already knew. Kira's eyes met his, vulnerability replacing her earlier urgency. "Emotional, physical. The chip makes you more receptive to Vorthak pheromones, increases attraction and compatibility." She looked away. "When I said I was falling in love with you, I meant it. But I can't be sure if what you might feel is real or engineered." Jackson reached out without thinking, his fingers brushing her cheek. Her skin was soft, warm despite its alien coolness, and she leaned into his touch like a flower turning toward sunlight. "Does it matter?" he asked softly. "Real or not? What I'm feeling right now, this pull toward you, it's the most honest thing in my life right now." She closed her eyes, her hand covering his. "Everything they've done to you, it's a violation. Your choice, your autonomy." "My choice is to trust you," Jackson interrupted. "My choice is to fight back." He paused, studying her face in the crimson light. "My choice is this." He leaned forward, and she met him halfway. Their lips touched gently at first, then with growing intensity as weeks of watching each other from across diplomatic halls culminated in this moment of connection. She tasted, like starlight and promises, and when they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "We can't stay here," Kira whispered against his lips. "They'll expand the search soon." "Then we make them regret it," Jackson said, his military training reasserting itself. "You said there are others like me on this ship. We find them. We get proof of what's been done to us. And then we make sure the galaxy knows exactly what the Vorthak Collective has been doing to their human allies." Kira smiled, and for the first time since he'd found her in his quarters, it reached her violet eyes. "You're going to start a war." "No," Jackson corrected, standing and offering her his hand. "I'm going to finish one that was started the moment they decided to make me into something I never consented to be." As she took his hand, their fingers intertwining naturally, neither of them noticed the small device blinking silently in the shadows, evidence that their location had already been compromised. The storage bay's silence was shattered by the distant sound of blast doors sealing, the unmistakable signature of a ship-wide lockdown. Jackson felt Kira tense beside him, her alien senses picking up threats his human ones couldn't detect. "They're sealing sections," she whispered. "Standard Vorthak security protocol when hunting a fugitive." "How long do we have?" Jackson asked, already moving toward the bay's secondary exit. "Minutes, maybe less." Kira's eyes reflected the emergency lighting, like mirrors. "Jackson, there's something else. The enhancement process, it doesn't just modify your DNA. Under extreme stress, the changes can manifest early. Enhanced strength, faster reflexes, limited telepathic sensitivity." "Are you saying I'm already changing?" The thought should have terrified him, but instead he felt a strange anticipation, as if his body had been waiting for permission to become something more. "The bond between us, I can feel your emotions, your determination. That's not normal human Vorthak interaction." She paused, her hand finding his in the darkness. "You're magnificent, Jackson. Whatever they intended, you're still you, just more." Her words sent heat through him that had nothing to do with the ship's recycled atmosphere. In the dim light, surrounded by danger, she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Her alien nature didn't make her foreign. It made her perfect, like she'd been designed specifically for him. The sound of approaching footsteps cut through his thoughts. Multiple sets moving with military precision. Maintenance shaft, he decided, but Kira shook her head. "They'll expect that. Vorthak hunt in patterns. They'll cover all standard escape routes." Her violet eyes gleamed with sudden inspiration. "But they don't know human tactics." She led him to a section of the bulkhead that looked identical to every other panel. But when she pressed her palm against it, A hidden compartment opened, revealing environmental suits. Emergency gear, she explained, pulling on one of the suits. We go outside. Outside? Jackson stared at her. We're traveling at faster than light speed. The maintenance pods, Kira said, her voice muffled by the helmet. They're shielded, designed for exterior repairs during FTL transit. We can access the ship's data core from the outside. It was insane. It was also brilliant. Jackson donned his suit, marveling at how naturally he and Kira moved together, anticipating each other's actions like they'd been partners for years instead of hours. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into the pod bay. The small maintenance craft looked like a coffin with engines, barely large enough for 2 people. As they squeezed inside, Jackson became acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched, her thigh against his, her shoulder pressed to his chest, the whisper of her breathing in his comm system. Launching, Kira whispered, her hands dancing over controls with alien precision. The pod ejected into space, and Jackson's breath caught. Outside the small viewport, the Harmony's edge stretched like a metal city against the star-streaked darkness of FTL space. It was beautiful and terrible, the ship that had been his home now hunting them like prey. There, Kira pointed to a section of the ship's hull studded with sensor arrays. The external data access port, but we'll have to EVA to reach it. Extravehicular activity during FTL transit was theoretically possible but practically suicidal. The energy fields that protected the ship extended only meters beyond the hull. One mistake and they'd be torn apart by forces that could rend matter itself. I'll go, Jackson said, but Kira caught his arm. We go together, she said firmly. The bond between us. I can guide you through the energy fields, help you navigate by feel. They suited up in silence, but the air between them crackled with tension that had nothing to do with their dangerous mission. When Kira checked his suit seals, her touch lingered, and when their helmets touched briefly, the intimacy of shared air made his pulse race. The EVA was a dance with death. Energy fields writhed around them like living things, seeking to tear apart anything that didn't belong in the space between stars. But Kira was right. Somehow he could feel the safe paths through her, her alien senses guiding him through dangers his human mind couldn't comprehend. They reached the data port, but as Kira began her work, Jackson spotted movement in the observation deck above them. Figures in Vorthak military gear, weapons trained on their position. Kira, he warned, but she was already moving, her enhanced reflexes pulling them behind the shelter of a sensor array, just as energy blasts lit up the hull around them. They found us, she said unnecessarily, her breathing rapid with adrenaline. Can you finish the download? 30 more seconds, she replied, her fingers flying over the portable access device. 30 seconds felt like eternity as energy blasts carved chunks from their shelter. Then something inside Jackson snapped. Not broke, but activated. The world slowed around him, his senses expanding until he could feel the attackers' positions, their intentions, the rhythm of their assault. Without conscious thought, he launched, himself from cover, moving faster than humanly possible. He disarmed the first Vorthak soldier with movements that seemed choreographed, redirected the second's weapon into the third, and had all of them unconscious before his enhanced awareness fully processed what he'd done. Jackson, Kira breathed, staring at him through the helmet's faceplate. That was really incredible. I could feel them, he said, amazed. Their movements, their thoughts. Is that the enhancement, she confirmed, her voice filled with admiration and something deeper. You're becoming what they intended, but on your terms. Back in the maintenance pod, racing toward the ship's docking bay, Kira turned to him with eyes that held both desire and desperate urgency. When we get back inside, she said, everything changes. They'll know you've activated. They'll try to take you, study you, use you. Then we make sure they can't, Jackson replied, but Kira shook her head. You don't understand what just happened out there. You became something beyond human. The data I downloaded proves the conspiracy, but it also proves you're the first successful activation. They'll never stop hunting you. The pod sealed into the docking bay, and as the airlock cycled, Jackson pulled Kira close. Even through their environmental suits, he could feel her warmth, her alien heartbeat that somehow synchronized with his own. "Then let them come," he said against her helmet. "But know this, whatever happens next, what's between us is real. Enhanced or not, you're the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me." Their helmets parted with a soft hiss, and she kissed him fiercely, desperately, as if trying to pour everything she couldn't say into that single moment of connection. When they broke apart, her violet eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I love you, Jackson Cross, human enhanced or whatever you become, I love you." "And I love you," he replied, meaning it with every cell in his changing body. The airlock opened, revealing a dozen Vorthak soldiers with weapons drawn. At their head stood a figure in ceremonial armor, his face bearing the cruel beauty of Kira's species. "Hello, sister," the figure said, his voice dripping with false affection. "Time to come home." The Vorthak commander's smile was sharp as a blade as his soldiers surrounded Jackson and Kira. Despite being outnumbered 12-1, Jackson felt the strange calm that had overtaken him during the EVA, his enhanced senses cataloging threats, escape routes, and tactical advantages with inhuman precision. "Commander Thane," Kira said, her voice steady despite the weapons trained on them. "I should have known they'd send their best executioner." "Sister, you wound me," Thane replied, though his eyes held no warmth. "I'm here to bring you home safely. You and our valuable human asset." "I'm not your asset," Jackson growled, stepping slightly in front of Kira. Thane's laugh was like breaking glass. "Captain Cross, you've been our asset since the moment our surgeons opened your skull 3 years ago. Every thought, every action, every breath you've taken has been monitored and guided by Vorthak science." His gaze shifted to Kira. "Though, I admit your emotional attachment to him was unexpected." "The data we retrieved proves everything," Kira said defiantly. "The illegal experimentation, the violation of the alliance treaties." "Data that will never see daylight," Thane interrupted. "Along with the two of you, I'm afraid. The enhancement protocol is too valuable to be compromised by misguided sentiment." Jackson felt something building inside him. Not just anger, but a cold, calculating fury that seemed to expand his awareness beyond the confines of his merely human limitations. He could sense the soldiers' positions without looking, feel their nervous energy, even catch fragments of their thoughts. "The human is changing," one of them was thinking. "His biorhythms are spiking beyond normal parameters." "You made one mistake," Jackson said quietly, his voice carrying an authority that made several soldiers shift uncomfortably. "And what's that?" Thane asked, amused. "You assumed I'd be grateful." Jackson moved faster than thought, his enhanced abilities fully manifesting under the pressure of protecting Kira. He disarmed the closest soldier and used the man's own weapon to create a cascade of tactical chaos. Not killing, but neutralizing, with surgical precision that left even Thane momentarily stunned. In the confusion, Kira activated a device she'd concealed in her suit, an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disabled the soldiers' weapons and created a window of opportunity. "This way," she called, leading Jackson through a maintenance hatch that opened onto the ship's primary medical bay. They emerged in a sterile white chamber lined with diagnostic equipment, but it wasn't empty. 3 other figures were there, humans. Jackson recognized from the ship's crew, all connected to monitoring devices, all unconscious. "The other enhanced," Kira explained, moving to the central computer terminal. "They're being prepared for full activation." Jackson recognized Lieutenant Torres from Navigation, Chief Engineer Brennan, and Dr. Mitchell from the Diplomatic Corps. All good people, all unknowing victims of the same violation he'd suffered. "Can we wake them?" he asked, checking Torres's pulse, steady but somehow different, as if her very DNA was humming with alien energy. "Not safely," Kira replied, her fingers flying over the medical computer. "The activation process is delicate. Interrupt it wrong, and their minds could be permanently damaged." She paused, looking at him with a mixture of admiration and concern. "How are you handling the changes so well?" "I don't know," Jackson admitted. "It feels like I was always meant to be this way. Like some part of me was sleeping until now." The medical bay doors hissed open and Dr. Helena Voss entered, the ship's chief medical officer and a woman Jackson had trusted implicitly. Behind her came two, more figures in Vorthak uniforms. "Captain Cross," Dr. Voss said, her voice carrying a warmth that now felt obscene. "I'm so pleased to see the activation proceeding smoothly." "You," Jackson breathed, understanding flooding through him. "You've been part of this from the beginning." "I've been the primary coordinator," she confirmed proudly. "Monitoring your progress, adjusting the enhancement parameters, ensuring optimal integration between human and Vorthak physiology. You should be proud. You're the most successful subject we've ever produced." Kira stepped forward, her alien grace now carrying deadly intent. "You violated them, all of them, turned human beings into lab experiments. We improved them," Dr. Voss corrected. "Made them better, stronger, more capable of surviving in a hostile galaxy. The alliance between our species was always meant to be temporary, until humans could be properly upgraded." "Genocide," Jackson said flatly. "You're talking about genocide." "Evolution," Thane's voice came from behind them as he entered with a fresh squad of soldiers, weapons powered and aimed. "Humanity's violent nature tempered by Vorthak wisdom and telepathic ability, the perfect synthesis." But Jackson was no longer listening to their justifications. His enhanced senses had detected something else. The other enhanced humans were beginning to wake, their own abilities triggered by the stress hormones flooding the medical bay. Lieutenant Torres's eyes opened, first, immediately locking onto Jackson with recognition that went beyond normal sight. "Captain?" Her voice echoed in his mind, not spoken but thought directly at him. "We're getting out of here," he projected back, marveling at the ease of the telepathic communication. One by one, the other enhanced humans awakened, their own modifications, activated by proximity to Jackson's fully manifested abilities. The room filled with a subtle tension as 5 altered humans faced their creators. "Remarkable," Dr. Voss breathed. "Spontaneous network activation. The telepathic bonds are forming faster than our models predicted." "It's beautiful," Thane agreed, "and exactly why you can't be allowed to leave. The enhancement protocol must be protected, even from its own successes." But as the Vorthak soldiers raised their weapons, something unexpected happened. Kira stepped between them and the enhanced humans, her own alien physiology beginning to glow with soft bioluminescence. "There's something you don't know about me, brother," she said to Thane, her voice carrying new harmonics that seemed to resonate through the enhanced humans. "Something I discovered about myself while watching Jackson." "What are you talking about?" Thane demanded. "I'm enhanced too," Kira replied, her form beginning to shift and strengthen. "Not artificially, but naturally. The bond I've formed with Jackson, it's awakened dormant abilities in my own genetic code, abilities that were suppressed in our people generations ago." The medical bay erupted into chaos as Kira's transformation triggered defensive responses in all the enhanced humans. Jackson felt his own abilities surge beyond anything he'd experienced, his awareness expanding to encompass not just the room, but the entire ship, every life aboard it, every thought and emotion flowing through the vessel like a river of consciousness, and, in that moment of perfect clarity, he understood what they truly were. Not weapons, not experiments, but the first representatives of something entirely new. A fusion of species that could transcend the limitations of either alone. But first, they had to survive long enough to prove it. The enhanced humans moved as one, their telepathic network functioning with perfect synchronization. Jackson felt the thoughts and abilities of Torres, Brennan, and Mitchell flowing through him like additional limbs, their combined consciousness, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. Kira's transformation was even more remarkable. Her Vorthak physiology blazed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to resonate with the humans' enhanced nervous systems, creating a bridge between species that the enhancement protocol had never anticipated. "Impossible," Dr. Voss breathed, her scientific fascination overriding her sense of self-preservation. "The resonance cascade is creating exponential ability amplification. They're becoming something beyond our projections." Thane's response was more practical. He ordered his soldiers to open fire. The energy blasts never reached their targets. The enhanced humans' combined abilities created a barrier of pure thought and will that absorbed and redirected the weapon's energy harmlessly into the ship's hull. But Jackson felt the strain on all of them. This level of cooperation required enormous effort and couldn't be maintained indefinitely. "We need to end this quickly," Torres projected to the group. "Agreed," Brennan responded. "But how do we stop them, without becoming the monsters they tried to make us?" It was Kira who provided the answer. Her enhanced Vorthak abilities had given her access to the ship's communication systems, and with a thought, she activated a ship-wide broadcast. "Attention all personnel aboard the Harmony's Edge," her voice echoed through every corridor and chamber. "You are witnessing the results of an illegal conspiracy between elements of the Vorthak Collective and corrupted human officials. The enhancement protocol has violated the bodies and minds of your fellow crew members without consent or knowledge." On every screen throughout the ship, the evidence they'd downloaded began displaying. Medical records, genetic modification data, communication logs between conspirators, video footage of the secret procedures. The effect was immediate and devastating. In the medical bay, they could hear shouts of outrage and confusion echoing through the corridors as loyal crew members, both human and Vorthak, realized the scope of the betrayal. "You've doomed us all," Thane snarled, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "The Alliance will crumble, war will follow." "No," Jackson said, stepping forward. The enhancement process had changed him physically as well. He was taller, stronger, his features refined, but still recognizably human. "The Alliance will evolve, just like we have." Through the ship's communication network, they could hear Captain Rivera's voice ordering the arrest of Dr. Voss and demanding that Thane and his soldiers stand down. The coup was collapsing as quickly as it had begun, but Thane wasn't finished. Drawing a concealed plasma cutter, he lunged not at Jackson but at Kira, clearly intending to eliminate what he saw as the primary threat to Vorthak supremacy. Jackson's enhanced reflexes moved him faster than thought, intercepting Thane's attack. But the Vorthak commander was also enhanced, his artificial modifications making him stronger and more dangerous than any normal being. They grappled in a deadly dance, their enhanced abilities creating displays of speed and strength that left the other observers stunned. It was Kira who ended the fight. Her own natural enhancements allowed her to interface directly with Thane's, artificial modifications overloading his systems and leaving him unconscious but alive. "It's over," she said simply, though she swayed from the effort. Jackson caught her as she fell, and the moment their skin touched, something wonderful happened. Their enhanced abilities merged completely, creating a harmony between human and Vorthak consciousness that was breathtakingly beautiful. They could feel each other's thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations as if they shared a single soul. "Is this what they intended?" Kira asked, her voice filled with wonder. "This is what we chose," Jackson corrected, helping her to her feet. "What we've made of their violation." The following hours were a blur of testimony, evidence review, and political maneuvering. The other enhanced humans chose to remain aboard the Harmony's Edge as it returned to Earth, where they would work with both governments to establish ethical guidelines for human-Vorthak cooperation. Dr. Voss and her conspirators were taken into custody, facing charges for crimes against sentient beings. Thane and his soldiers were returned to the Vorthak Collective, where a reformist faction used the scandal to purge the enhancement protocol supporters from positions of power. 3 months later, Jackson stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned vessel New Harmony, watching Earth and Vorthak Prime rise simultaneously in the viewport. The ship was a joint venture, crewed equally by humans, Vorthak, and the small but growing population of enhanced individuals who served as living bridges between the species. Kira joined him at the viewport, her hand finding his naturally. Their bond had only grown stronger in the weeks since the conspiracy's exposure, and they'd discovered that their love was indeed real, not a product of artificial enhancement, but something that transcended species boundaries. "Any regrets?" she asked, though she already knew the answer through their connection. "Only that it took a conspiracy to bring us together," Jackson replied, turning to face her. The enhancement process had made her even more beautiful, if that was possible, but it was her courage and integrity that truly captivated him. "The enhanced accord will be signed tomorrow," Kira said, referring to the treaty that would govern cooperation between enhanced and unmodified individuals of both species. "A new chapter for everyone." "A new chapter for us, too," Jackson agreed, pulling a small device from his pocket. It wasn't quite a ring. Human and Vorthak bonding customs were different, but it was a symbol of commitment that both species could understand. Kira's eyes widened, her bioluminescent patterns flaring with joy. "Jackson, marry me," he said, simply. "Human ceremony, Vorthak bonding ritual, whatever combination makes us officially and completely united. I want to spend whatever lifespan our enhancements give us, learning everything there is to know about loving you." Her answer came through their telepathic bond before she could speak it aloud, a wave of love and acceptance and fierce joy that made his enhanced heart race. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes to everything, to marriage, to bonding, to whatever future we build together." As they kissed, their enhanced abilities created a brief moment of shared consciousness with everyone aboard the ship. Human, Vorthak, and enhanced alike. For just an instant, every being on the new harmony felt the pure love between Jackson and Kira, and understood that this was what true alliance looked like. Not conquest or assimilation, but two different beings choosing to become something greater together, while remaining fundamentally themselves. It was, everyone agreed later, the most beautiful moment any of them had ever experienced, and it was only the beginning.